Now, the framework that we've talked about so far for creating value has been mainly around this, this whole notion around creative destruction. And of course, there's the other piece that we need to include with that, which is close and near to dear to your hearts, which is disruptive innovation. You need both in order to be leaders at best. What is disruptive innovation? I'm going to create some very strict definitions on this because I think the definitions, the vocabulary is important because the vocabulary is then what you use and how you think. So the definition I'm using for disruptive innovation, because other people use it in journals and other places I've learned when I was preparing for this talk. And in our firm, we use disruptive innovation. And so I'm going to refer to the terminology we use at our firm. Number one of three is you're obsoleting existing technologies. You're creating an order of magnitude improvement in productivity over a technology than what exists today. Two is you're shifting industry business models. So in other words, you're creating something a lot more accessible or at a much lower price. And the third is you're expanding a market with new applications. So the market does exist already, but because of the way you're approaching it, there's all types of new utility that's available. And the bottom line from the world I work in early stage venture capitals, disruptive startups have an inherent defense against competition because incumbents are unable to respond without unraveling the current business. Can someone else name for me a disruptive innovation by this term? Anyone? Anyone? What's disruptive about it? Okay, I'm glad you said that. So this is very helpful. And in fact, I give you a book even though it wasn't the right answer. Disruptive innovation is something that has been adopted by a lot of people because it is disruptive. So if it's going to be, it's still not disruptive yet. Anyone else?
Maybe voice over internet kind of phones, you know.
For sure. I mean, look at all the international calling that takes place today that didn't take place before. Absolutely. That's a great answer. So I'm distinguishing disruptive innovation very much from invention. You know, a simple example to me is this. Most people might say that actually the introduction of the automobile was disruptive. It's disruptive innovation. It wasn't. Most people kept riding horses because they couldn't afford that car. The disruptive innovation was the Model T, which became not only accessible because of price, but it was very durable and it didn't take a lot of maintenance. So that was the disruptive innovation by this definition. So, I'll give you examples here on business models. These over here on your left-hand side, these are typically distribution plays. In other words, because the distribution becomes so much easier and lower cost, it creates much more accessibility to the same product in a market that already existed. On the right-hand side, you can see, and I'm sure you can guess what those are without me going into them.
So it's technology maturity, though. I mean, technology has to be mature enough that you can apply it.
See, I'll tell you this, from a customer or end user standpoint, they don't know what mature technology is. They know what easy technology is. They know what saving money is. They know what higher productivity is. So they don't look at technology from anything other than a productivity or a cost enhancer. So I think in terms of how we want to think about things relative to the model and framework I'm introducing, again, there are many different terms and ways of looking at this, but the way I'm defining it in this framework is that it's got to be embraced, absolutely. And it's not to discount the first automobile, but it really is to more emphasize that what it's all about is impacting other people's lives. Okay?
Think of mobile broadband. Is that disruptive or not?
You would have to name an application for me more than that, right?
Mobile broadband, you can carry your Wi-Fi any place you want.
Right. So I think what I think was disruptive was at the point where the price of mobile broadband and the reliability of it was more ubiquitous.
Well, I took, for example, a mobile broadband, and I have a Vantage system in the house.
Yes.
And I converted actually the Wi-Fi to a LAN, and because I need to to connect it to the varnish system because you have to have a high-speed internet.
Right.
And so that was disruptive because I canceled all my Charter cable and I canceled my all my AT&T because these guys are pretty lousy and charge you as much as they can. So
Right.
that's disruptive innovation.
So that's important. So the bundling of different services was very disruptive in pricing, absolutely. And that would be totally an innovation, disruptive innovation. So in other words, the difference, and this is what we're getting to, what's the difference between an invention and disruptive innovation? An invention is a new idea, new technology. Very important to do, but a precursor to disruptive innovation. And the formula that I introduced, the framework, it wasn't about invention plus creative destruction. It was about disruptive innovation. Okay? So I just want to kind of emphasize that. And just to play with this so we kind of sink in this concept. Because I think at times when I talk to very brilliant people, that they a lot of times will focus on their invention. And in my role as a venture capitalist, I actually can't do much with inventions. Because licensing technology is great, and Johns Hopkins has made it a business, and they're allowing other people in the world to make a difference. I think you guys at Michigan can make the difference. You don't have to wait for someone else to do it for you. What is this a picture of? Okay, that was right. I don't know who it was. Was it a jump ball, or
I knew how to jump.
was it two simultaneous? There he goes, pan back two. Okay, that is correct. Okay, we'll take it one step. And when was it invented? 1947. Absolutely correct. Okay, 1947. Okay. And where was it invented? Oh, I don't have enough books. Okay, all those are right answers. Who's this fellow at the top of the page? Marita's son. There was a company precursor to Sony, and he ran Sony. Right. So that's close enough. Oh, you got one. Okay.
He's a good student.
So, and how much did he pay to have a license to the transistor from Bell Labs? Okay, speak up. You got to be brave. What did I hear? What did I hear? So I heard someone say it. 50,000. It's debate. Most people say 25, but some people say 50. So 25 to 50,000 he paid for a license to the transistor. Okay? And with that, he created the transistor radio. The transistor radio, I would argue, was a disruptive innovation. The transistor was an invention. And with that, he created a whole company of products with transistors and improved upon this technology with all new technology. Okay? And I think that is the continuous loop of disruptive innovation, because when he does that, what is he doing? He's destroying his base of technology, the transistor, with new technology. And that cycle of someone who's willing to create that destruction and creation, that's what's sustainable. And that's why typically big companies stall, because they no longer want to destroy what they created because they're all too wealthy. And why would you want to change a good thing and cannibalize yourself? And that is what creates the opportunity for new attackers, for entrepreneurs, for people to come to the market, because the big guys don't want to make a change. So, in my world, success is defined by, of course, being an engineer, I got to use formulas. And as David Packard said, if it's not worth measuring, it's not worth doing. So, return on investment, it's the total returns of all the portfolios that are made, portfolio investments made from the fund over the fund size. So, and this is how we do it. This is basically our disruptive innovation approach that we use, combined with something else that we call capital efficiency that I won't go into. Okay? Now, what is the success for EECS? I would suggest it's return on your time. And how do you define that return on your time? With disruptive innovation plus the culture, passion, and expertise that you apply together with the limited time you have. And the time is really important. and that requires focus. So you got to decide what you want to do, but more importantly, you have to decide what you don't want to do. And that might be to the chagrin of some of your professors or some other people, but I think that's very important to learn to focus. So focus your efforts to develop disruptive innovation and leverage expertise, culture, passion over time. So next I'm going to get into the application of this framework. I'm going to try to move through this a little bit more quickly. Here are portfolio companies that Gabriel Venture Partners has invested in. And I'm going to share each one of these have had a different characteristic under this disruptive innovation. Chegg is a disruptive business model. In essence, it took a market, college textbooks, and allowed students to pay 1/3 the price and for the exact same product. So that's disruptive because students ask, well, I can either go and buy the book or I can rent the book and I can have another $70 for beer. Okay, I got it. Aurora Biofuels. This is a company that basically takes algae and turns into biodiesel fuel as well as into other products like omega-3, other food supplements. And this is very disruptive, not only because it's clean, because this whole clean tech thing is really, really big, but it's disruptive because it's price and cost competitive with processing crude oil. And that's why it's competitive. And I'm not going to knock anything with windmills or solar and all, but a lot of solutions that are alternative are dependent upon the price of oil being pretty high. And so this being competitive at I think it's a $40 a barrel, and I think it's much up from there right now, makes it very, very competitive. And so this is on a disruptive technology for us, how we define disruptive technology. The last one, NextG Networks, does both. It's actually a disruptive business model that's been enabled by a disruptive technology. This company had a technology called DAS, Distributed Antenna System Technology. It allowed you to, in essence, have a miniature antenna that allowed you to put it on a lamppost or side of a building, but in areas where the zoning was such, you couldn't put up a cell phone tower. So in places like Palo Alto, where it's a community where they don't want to have that eyesore, or municipalities where they can't just put up a tower, this was very attractive. And so what they did is they took this technology and they went to the major wireless carriers and said, listen, we'll take care of all that dirty work of getting the microwave signal in places that you can't even get to your central office. And we'll do it at half the price. And what they did is they bought up a lot of cheap spare capacity dark fiber, okay, to the central offices. They put up an antenna somewhere, they got clearance. They put one carrier on that system, and it basically paid for the whole project, so every other carrier that came on top of it, because they did this kind of basically shopping mall business model, where they aggregated it all onto the dark fiber, became very, very profitable. Of all these companies, these are all still companies that are standalone private companies today, but I'm hoping Chegg goes and gets publicly listed next year. And we're going to use Chegg, because it's, I thought, closer to home for you guys, as an example of applying the framework. So I think you get it. It's pretty simple. They basically, you find out what books you need, and you order it online, and they ship it to you. And when they ship the book to you, they also ship the return envelope. So all you got to do is remember where that is, and at the end of the semester, return it. So the first part of the framework for creative destruction is passion. And all the people involved with starting the company, including me helping them write the business plan, was highly, highly passionate about the cost of going to school. I thought like how much I had to work in a factory while I was going to school in order to pay for my books. And if I could have done a third of less of that and spent my money somewhere else, that would have been huge. So I was pretty passionate about that. And the founders of the company were pretty passionate about it too. And the students obviously are passionate about it. What's disruptive in terms of the innovation around this? Well, what's disruptive is you have this oligopoly, these three, in essence, publishers, one of them out of Ann Arbor, Follett, who basically are running the roost, who are gouging students with high price of books, and then not only that, but creating multiple versions within insane short time periods. Like the information couldn't have changed because the three authors of that economics book have already died. But they kept turning new editions to create more profits.